So this is the topic, characters, and the question was choose one character for an interview and to devise questions to ask the character about events in the book that affected them the most. All right, so I chose the father. I chose Elieser's father. Even though he didn't make it out of the camps alive, he I thought was an awesome character and went through so much in the book. I think it'd be very interesting to talk to him and about his thoughts of how everything went. And the thoughts of being in a camp sounds really scary, but being a father who had to ultimately take his family to their own death sounds horrible. So my first question for him would be, how did you feel when you had to leave your home and take your family to ultimately their death? Because he knew. I feel like he would probably maybe choke up at this point, be a little bit overwhelmed because everything that happened. And fathers have so much of a responsibility to, take care of their family and their kids and their wife and everything. And at this point, too, he was a council member. He was an administrative council member. So he knew, what was going on in the camps and knew everything, that was going on. So it must have been so hard for him to have to take his family out of that safe place and take them to the camps. All right, so part 2 of the questions. My second question, was it hard knowing information about the camps that you couldn't tell people? So because his dad was a town official, he went to the meeting and he had found out all the information. This is in the first few pages of the book. He found all the information about everything, but he couldn't tell anyone. And yet that whole time he had friends and family that came to their house, and they were very concerned about what was going to happen to them. And so they were like, hey, can you tell us? But he couldn't. So I wanted to know his take on that. How hard was that for him? And then question 3, were you proud of your son during that time that he was trying his best to fight for both of you? His dad was older, so he had a harder time doing the tasks like any man did, but yet because his dad was older and weaker. But in the story, I think about when they had the block sections, and Eliezer ran back to make sure his dad passed and was okay, because he, throughout the whole story, he kept saying, I can't leave my dad, I can't leave my dad, we have to stay connected. And then on their final destination, on the train, his dad was starting to die, and so the people were trying to throw out all the guys who were dying, and they tried to throw his dad out, and he was like, Dad, come on, you're okay. So I don't know. And then even when they got to that camp and his dad was really, really sick, he gave him his rations and made sure he was okay. So I don't know, his dad could be yeah, I was super proud of him for how hard he worked, or he could be he should have worked harder on himself. I don't know, I feel his dad would have been proud of him. So yeah, I bet if I talked to him in person I'd probably have more questions, but that's really all I have for him. But he was definitely an interesting character, and if I'd want to talk to someone too, it would be